America. I'm Cancel Schlapp. I think it's like day 2 that we've actually get to hang out together again, which has been so lovely.
It's a little clunky, I'll just say.
It's a little clunky.
We're trying
to get back into a rhythm, but
Yeah.
Thank God our next guest will help us get there, I think, right?
Yeah, so it's a great friend of CPAC, Senator Mike Lee from the state of Utah, with a 99% lifetime ACU rating.
Wow.
I don't know what he ever got wrong, so that can't be right. But anyway, 99%. The ranking member of the Senate Judiciary Committee, a leading legal mind, and is coming out with a brand new book.
Yeah.
Have you read it yet?
Not yet, because it's coming out June 7th, but we'll make sure to pre-order it because I'm really excited about reading this book. It's called Saving 9. It deals with the Supreme Court and why it's so important to preserve the Supreme Court with 9 justices. As you know, as we all know, the Democrats' attempt has been to expand the court. Senator Mike Lee, let's, first of all, thanks for joining us, and let's talk about this book that's coming out.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm excited about it. Look, I started writing Saving 9 a little over a year ago because I started thinking about it, and I realized, hey, the Supreme Court's almost certainly going to take up an abortion case in the next term. It did. The Supreme Court, if it does take up that case, which it did, is likely going to overturn Roe versus Wade. And if it does, there are going to be renewed calls to pack the court, something we haven't seen since 1937. That's why I wrote Saving 9, because this would be destructive, not just of the independence of the judiciary, but of the whole constitutional framework. This book explains why, and it explains what all Americans can do if they want to stop it.
Mike Lee, it's like the lowest common denominator. It seems like whenever we get into this battle of how many votes it should take in the Senate to overcome a filibuster, when a filibuster can be used, it's always the Democrats that end up doing the thing that breaks the institution, and then the Republicans are faced with the challenge of going back to the old order, which was better, or just kind of doubling down and beating them at their own game. If they were to pack the court, is this just going to break that whole idea, this kind of idea that there's 9 justices and then we're going to have to beat them at their own game?
Yes. In fact, that's a consistent theme in Saving 9. In fact, in chapters 8 and 9 of Saving 9, I explore that very issue. And what I point out is that Republicans have, at least for the last 152, 153 years, since we've set the level at 9, we've been content with leaving it at 9. We haven't, during that time period, tried to pack the court. But if the Democrats were to do this, it would be a one-way ratchet. Because of the way the Supreme Court is set up, you know, they have lifetime tenure. They serve for the rest of their lives, or unless they're either impeached and removed, or they, resign or something. And so you can't just remove the position because people are still in there. And as a result of that, Republicans would end up responding tit for tat. So if the Democrats add 4 this time, Republicans would add 4 next time. It'd go back and forth. Different parties gain control of the House, Senate, and White House. It'd start to look like the intergalactic Senate in the Star Wars movies before long, and it wouldn't be a judicial body, but a political one.
Well, I'm sure when you were writing this book, just digging into the history of the Supreme Court, why did they go with 9 justices in the first place? Number one. Number two, what is the big argument that you're making here as to why we have to keep it to 9 justices?
Yeah, so in chapters 2 and 3 of Saving 9, I explain how we got there. It really was more art than science, sort of art mixed with happenstance. The Supreme Court has been 6. It's had 6 justices. It's had 5. It's had 7. It's gotten up as high as 10. But we ultimately settled on 9 just because that's the way it worked out 153 years ago. And having reached that point, we decided it would be a bad idea to politicize it, which would happen if we were to change the number now. The only way that one could plausibly come up with a legitimate means of doing it is if they concluded that the court simply wasn't big enough from a human resources standpoint, if they were understaffed with only 9 justices. That's not the case. That's not nearly the case today. And so the only other reason why you'd want to change it would be to secure a partisan political advantage by using the courts for things the courts aren't well equipped to handle. So that's why we have to stop it, because there's no way, once you start changing it now, no way to stop that from turning the Supreme Court into a political institution.
Now, Mike Lee, I'm going to probably make you uncomfortable, but there are two ideas there.
I can stop him. I'll stop him right now.
Saving 9. That first word is awfully important. Saving. To me, there's like a double entendre there. How do we save the respectful history of the Supreme Court when it's becoming so politicized? And this leak that recently happened is an example of what must be a increasingly rancorous and political kind of environment, even at the Supreme Court. How can we save an independent judiciary if they become this political?
Yeah, great question, Matt. And first of all, I love the interplay there between husband and wife, Matt and Mercy. We could call it mercy and justice. He wants to go in for the kill. She's offering to provide mercy. But yeah,
I'm like, don't harm my favorite senator. That would be horrible.
Oh, that's kind of you, Mercedes. I appreciate that. All right, so look, warts and all, despite its flaws, and the Supreme Court has them because it's run by mortals, the Supreme Court is still the finest institution of its kind anywhere in the world. I'd stack it up against any other and it would outperform all of them. And so this is something that, despite the fact that it, in some instances, in some areas, it has become politicized, it is still mostly a good court. And so that's why we need to save it, because when it's not making law, and by the way, that's what it's doing in overturning Roe versus Wade, in Justice Alito's masterful draft majority opinion, it's incredibly well written, trying to get the courts out of the political debate, is trying to say, look, abortion, not made federal by the Constitution, not taken off the plate for the people's elected lawmakers by the Constitution. Therefore, it remains with the people, where typically that's going to be regulated at the state level, not the federal one.
Yeah, the one other quick question on that. I guess the part that I thought would make you uncomfortable, but to me, the idea that a lower level staffer made this leak of this draft opinion, I don't know. I find it a little bit implausible. I know they're finishing up or pursuing an investigation as to what happened there, but is it plausible that a justice kind of with a wink and a nod had someone, a clerk or a staffer, leak this document?
Plausible and possible, yes. Likely, no. I personally ascribe to the law clerk theory. I think this was likely a law clerk. I think it's going to be relatively easy to figure out who it was. I see now that they're requesting phone records and requiring the signing of affidavits by law clerks. I think they're going to figure this out. But yeah, the reason I think it's more likely a law clerk than the justice, look, these people, once they're confirmed, they're on there for life. And so they've got to work with each other. The downside to them of playing any part in having it leaked is too high. It's also high for the law clerk, because I think that the law clerk probably will be and probably should be disbarred and never be allowed to practice law again. But a law clerk isn't stuck there for the rest of his or her life and can pursue other interests. The justices are there for good.
Can I ask, Mike, a quick question on that?
Sure.
Could a president pardon this law clerk, and would that allow them to practice law again?
Interesting. Presidential pardons extend to federal crimes, and the decision made by a bar association to disbar someone would be a professional body operating within a state law framework and not within a criminal law context. So yeah, president, if there were a federal crime committed, president could pardon that, but a president can't undo a disciplinary action by a bar association.
Can I ask a question now?
No, I'm going to keep going.
Okay, no, I know this is like one of your favorite topics. So, but let me ask you, Senator, so the leak occurred. We've seen these protests happening outside the conservative justices' homes. Really is about mounting this pressure on these justices to break on this issue. What do you believe will be the consequences if and when Roe v. Wade is overturned?
Yeah, I think we're likely to see more protesting and that sort of thing. It's unfortunate that people have chosen to protest, and number one, as if this were a political matter before a political body, when it's neither. I think it's most unfortunate that they've chosen to do so at the justices' homes. Now, long before the leak occurred, long before I knew that was going to happen, I pointed out in the book, I think it's in either chapter 1 or chapter 2, I told the story of when I was 11 years old and protesters showed up to my home. I was home alone at the time. Actually, my older sister Wendy was a teenager, slept through the whole thing, but I was effectively at home alone. And a large commercial-sized bus full of abortion rights protesters showed up at my parents' home and protested. And I explained that I went out and talked to the person who appeared to be in charge. We'll call her Karen. I asked, why are you protesting in front of my home? And she very creepily said, "Oh, hello, little boy. We're not here to hurt you. Don't ever say that to a kid."
Yeah.
But I pointed out that, it's really creepy to show up and protest at the private residence of a public official. Because regardless of what other message you're trying to send, the one message that sticks is, we know where you sleep. And that should be unlawful. With respect to a judge or justice, it is unlawful. In fact, it's criminal. It's a serious felony offense in violation of 18 U.S.C. Section 1507, something that I'm sure you talk about at the Schlapp home all the time. So this thing shouldn't be tolerated, and it's beyond my ability to understand why the Justice Department hasn't taken action against those organizing and participating in these protests at their homes.
Great point. I do also want to ask, you saw the Senate Democrats move quickly to try to codify Roe v. Wade. That fell flat. But when you even read the piece of legislation, I mean, it was as extreme as it gets when it comes to this issue of abortion. What do you think will be the tactics from the left as we move towards this phase, as they're going to continue to try to codify Roe v. Wade?
It appears to me that they regard abortion as sort of their comfort food of choice by political analogy. I think they're going to return to this again and again, and they're going to try to play to their radical left base, which really is wildly out of step with where the American people are as a whole. This bill did much more than just codify Roe. It did that, and as I explained in 7-9, Roe is wrong on many, many levels. But it went much further than that and made it unlawful for states to prohibit, for example, sex-selective abortions, abortions targeting babies with Down syndrome, or even targeting partial birth abortions, whereby the baby is partially delivered and then violently dismembered while being delivered, right up until the moment of live birth. This is something that, it's only something like 12 or 13% of the American people who are not horrified by that. The remaining, I wonder about why they are not horrified by it.
We had this strange thing about the evil of abortion where you had Catholic politicians, Geraldine Ferraro, Mario Cuomo, in the 1980s that said, look, I'm personally opposed to abortion, but I find it morally repugnant. I would never participate in one. Whether those words were just kind of political pablum or really heartfelt, I'll leave it to others to determine. But you've had this hard shift with Nancy Pelosi and Joe Biden, who don't talk about abortion as a tragedy, who don't say they would never participate in one. They fully embrace this idea that there should be no regulations on abortion. You have some states that have normalized post-birth abortions, whatever that means. Isn't it a tragedy? We could have one question about where the law should be on these moral questions. Obviously, all of us come down on the fact that life should be protected, but you have this other tragedy that this casual rhetoric as if this is just a healthcare choice. What has happened to us as a society?
Right, because this is not something. It's not like you can say that I think abortion is wrong. If you're personally against abortion, typically that's going to mean you're against abortion because you believe this is a human life that's being taken. And if it is that, then you can't treat it as if it were a morally neutral decision, like having a wart removed or the removal of some undifferentiated clump of cells. But that's not what we're talking about here. So I personally find it difficult to understand why someone would say I'm personally against it. But the law should have no reach on it. Because if you're saying I'm personally against it, you probably mean that it's because it's a human life, and it's a human life. Why would you not want the law to protect it? That is, after all, the whole purpose of law and government is to protect life, liberty, and property.
Yeah, for sure. Amen. Since I asked so many questions, do you have any final questions?
Well, I have a lot of questions, and we're not done with Senator Lee just yet. But Senator, where can people get your book, Saving 9?
You can buy Saving Nine now. It's available for pre-order on Amazon, pretty much anywhere books are sold. But I know it's up on Amazon. You can order it now. If you order it now, it'll be there on or before the release date of June 7th.
And we're trying to also get, I haven't talked to Senator Lee about this, but we're going to put him on the spot. We're going to try to get him to sell it at CPAC Texas, too, in
that'd be
Dallas. I think
fantastic.
it'll sell like hotcakes.
I agree. I think it's such an important issue. Senator, stay with us. We're going to be right back.